What's up, guys? This is VinylicPuma, and today I wanted to talk about the final president of the United States in the Fallout universe and what happened to them. Now, unlike some of my other videos where I've previously talked about what happened to various factions and places in the Fallout universe, I wanted to go over an interesting terminal entry that can be found in Fallout 4 that talks about the whereabouts of the last president of the United States. And I want to talk about why this terminal entry is both interesting and potentially significant when it comes to our understanding of Fallout lore. So I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. In Fallout 4, if the player manages to visit the Boston Bugle building, they can discover the Boston Bugle terminal on the upper floor, which outlines a number of articles that were written by an NPC that we never meet named Mags Vecchio. And one of Mags Vecchio's final articles is the fourth article titled "White House Remains Empty. Where is our president?" And this article reveals a number of interesting things about the last president of the United States and their whereabouts leading up to the Great War. And that article reads as follows. For more than half a year, the West Wing of America's most famous residence has remained shrouded in near-complete darkness. A skeleton crew of manual laborers remains on staff to maintain the property, but nobody has lived or worked politically there for several months. And even though the White House Press Corps was unofficially and unceremoniously disbanded around the same time, the media has remained steadfast in answering the most important of questions. Where is our president? At first, the assumption was that the entirety of the United States government had moved operations to Raven Rock, the military operations center located in the mountainous region of Pennsylvania, just a few miles northeast of the presidential retreat in Camp David, Maryland. But further investigations have revealed that neither the president nor his cabinet have been to the Raven Rock complex in over a year. So, if not Raven Rock, then where? Well, thanks to an extensive and exhaustive investigation, the Boston Bugle has uncovered the answer, and our readers will likely consider it as strange as it is shocking. The president has been leading our country from a Poseidon Energy oil rig just off the coast of San Francisco. It's certainly an odd choice for a presidential command center, or is it? Not as much as it may seem, as our investigation discovered. Thanks to the testimony of a highly placed anonymous source, the Boston Bugle has learned that the official designation of the oil rig is actually Control Station Enclave, giving credence to the long-running rumors of a secret militarized shadow government known as the Enclave that would take control of the United States in the event of a nuclear conflagration. And so, the mystery of the missing president has finally been solved. But in doing so, has the Boston Bugle also uncovered evidence that the end of the world and the form of total atomic war is also at hand? Sadly, the president's silence speaks volumes. Now, what's important about this article is that it reveals that the last president fled to not just any Poseidon Energy oil rig, but that the last president of the United States ended up fleeing to Control Station Enclave. Now, if you're familiar with Fallout 2, this is the same Enclave facility that the Chosen One eventually visits and ultimately destroys during the events of the game. So seeing it mentioned here in Fallout 4 is sort of a nice nod to Fallout 2. However, what's also interesting is that this pre-war article mentions the Enclave by name, basically confirming to us that the Enclave existed as an entity before the Great War. Now, while it's true that we sort of knew that the Enclave existed in the pre-war period, as it was outlined in the Fallout Bible and some design documents for Interplay's version of Fallout 3, it was somewhat unclear that this was actually canon. However, with this article's inclusion in Fallout 4, we can basically confirm now that the Enclave is a pre-war entity. Hence why the president's whereabouts leading up to the Great War are so important. But now we know that the Enclave was an entity in the pre-war period, let's discuss why this is important. Since the Enclave existed pre-war, it could potentially explain why there was a suit of XO1 power armor located in a pre-war display case in Nuka World. Perhaps the Enclave commissioned West Tech to develop a new power armor suits as a part of a top-secret project that ultimately resulted in what would become known as the XO1, or the advanced power armor that we see in both Fallout 4 and in Fallout 2. Still, I suppose it is a little weird that the Enclave and United States military would display a top-secret power armor at Nuka World, and maybe that could be chalked up to hubris. But since the XO1 has been tied to the Enclave as well as the Enclave remnants in previous games, I think the fact that the Enclave existed before the war might explain how the armor actually got there. Something else we should discuss is Vault Tech. While the Vault Tech Corporation and Enclave aren't the same thing, it is possible that the Enclave may have consistently interacted with Vault Tech on a semi-frequent basis leading up to the events of the Great War. Now, it's unconfirmed whether this is canon or not, but there are design documents for Interplay's Fallout 3 that point to the idea that the Enclave was involved and may have funded the research of Vault Tech's Vault experiments as a means to test whether the average American would be able to deal with the difficulties and complications that could arise during prolonged space travel. Thus, the Enclave ensured that some of the vaults were designed with some kind of critical flaw and/or research gimmick to test how humans would react to given situations. For example, Vault 12 from the original Fallouts was meant to test the effects of radiation by exposing Vault participants to radiation, while Vault 81 from Fallout 4 was designed to develop a cure for all human diseases by exposing Vault participants to a given disease and then researching the cure. Ultimately, the Enclave space program would benefit from Vault Tech's unethical research. With this in mind, Vault Tech's Among the Stars exhibit at Nuka World may make some more sense. The Enclave had plans on going to space, and perhaps Vault Tech's Among the Stars exhibit was an imagination of what that might look like. While we can't really say for sure, it's at least an interesting idea. What is definitely weird about the Where's Our President article, though, is that this information is coming from the Boston Bugle. It seems like the Enclave wouldn't want the Boston Bugle to publish something like this. Now, while the Enclave probably don't care that people know that the president is no longer living in the White House, it does seem like they would care about the mention of Control Station Enclave and a direct reference to their own organization. After all, if the Boston Bugle knew and published a story about the president's whereabouts on Control Station Enclave, wouldn't the Chinese also know about it? I somehow doubt that Chinese agents in pre-war America wouldn't want to look into this story and see if it were true or not. And if they were able to find out that the article is providing true information, what's stopping China from targeting Control Station Enclave during the Great War? Assuming the Where's the President article was published between October 19th through the 23rd, it seems like China would have been able to get this information and use it to destroy Control Station Enclave in addition to the rest of the United States. But since we know that Control Station Enclave wasn't destroyed, my guess would be either the article came out too late for the Chinese to react, or that the article itself is what triggered the Great War. Perhaps the article was published in the Boston Bugle and then the Enclave learned about its publication. And in a panic and in an attempt to quote-unquote protect themselves from the Chinese, perhaps the Enclave ensured that the US military deployed its nukes first. That way, the Chinese didn't learn about Control Station Enclave. Or if the Chinese didn't know about it, they simply didn't have enough time to react. It's hard to say, but it does seem somewhat plausible. After all, you figure if the Chinese have an intelligence apparatus operating in the United States, it would be in the Enclave's best interest to protect itself. So, aside from the fact that this article provides the player with the information that the Enclave existed pre-war, it may also provide us with the catalyst for the Great War itself. So while this article may seem somewhat insignificant at first, this one article on the president's whereabouts leading up to the Great War could potentially confirm and also make us re-examine a lot of things that we previously speculated about when it comes to Fallout's lore. While we had a vague idea that the Enclave was a pre-war organization, the Boston Bugle confirms that for us. And while we may have had a vague idea that it was actually China that started the Great War, it may have actually been the United States, given the contents of the Boston Bugle article. If you ask me, it'd be interesting if any of this information gets confirmed in future Fallout titles. But until then, I think that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see you all next time.